Good Saturday morning and welcome to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Executive Randy Porter, the show that's talking about all the great things happening in Putnam County. We've got a great show for you today. Christmas is right around the corner, and if you're out today working on your Christmas shopping, I hope you'll take a break and be a part of the show today. We've got lots to cover today, so let's get started with my very special guest this morning, Congressman Elect John Rose. Welcome to the show, John.
Good morning, County Executive Porter. It's good to be here.
It's great. We're all excited. You are our new Congressman Elect. Would that be correct?
I think so. Congressman Elect, Representative Elect.
Going to Washington for Putnam County and in the 6th District. I was going back and looking at the election results, looking at your number of votes and all those kind of things. That was a big win.
It was. We were very gratified by that, very humbled that the people across the 6th District came out in such strong numbers to support us, and looking forward to serving them and feel a real obligation to try and do the very best I can.
I campaigned in one county. You campaigned in 19 counties across the state. I can't imagine what that was like. Time-wise, having to try to cover so many counties and so many events had to be really tiresome.
It can be at times tiresome, but it's really invigorating as well. As I look back on it, even at this point, sometimes I'm kind of marvel at, how did I win? Because I know I didn't get to everyone.
Everybody.
And there were always events that we couldn't be at, and you just have to pick and try to spread your time out across the district so that everyone in each of those counties knows that you're thinking of them.
Looking at the percentage of vote and the numbers of votes you got, I think I'm right on this. 172,684 was what I saw on the state's website. That's got to be humbling to think that many people across the state put their trust in you and voted for John Rose and have their faith in you that you're going to serve us in Congress and be great.
It really is, and some of you may have heard Bill Lee tell a story on the campaign trail running for governor about the first person who came up and said, "I voted for you," and that really strikes at home with someone like him and me that have never run for office before, and so that is kind of amazing. And when you stop and really sit back and think about it, it makes you think that these folks are putting a lot of trust in you, and so makes you want to do a good job.
Makes you want to do a good job. That's great. Historical win. I think have we had a congressman from Cookeville, Putnam County before?
I haven't independently done the research, and as an old graduate student, I'm hesitant to say definitively, but from what I understand, there has never been a congressman from Putnam County.
This is great. We're all excited, absolutely excited. We're talking to John Rose, our newly elected congressman for our district here in Putnam County. John, you have a great childhood story that being at events with you over the last several months and hearing you tell this. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Putnam County and what it was like and what brought you to this point.
Sure. Well, I was born here in 1965. My parents moved here the year before from my father's family farm, which is down in the edge of Smith County on the Smith County-DeKalb County line. And so I went to schools here, was in the first kindergarten class that Putnam County had back in 1970 or so. I should know that exactly, and at Parkview Elementary, and then went to Capshaw, and then transferred to Northeast when that school opened. And so I was in the 5th and 6th grade there, graduated from high school, went on to Tennessee Tech, studied agribusiness economics, and graduated in 1988, got a graduate degree from Purdue University in agricultural economics, and then a law degree from Vanderbilt.
That's where kind of, okay, so you're in agribusiness, and then all of a sudden jump to the legal side. What was that about?
Well, my dad was at heart a farmer. He worked for the farm credit system here in Cookeville. That's what brought my parents to Cookeville, but he continued to farm as I was in my childhood all throughout his life, and so he instilled that love for farming and agriculture in me, and that's what I decided I wanted to do, that I wanted to take up the family legacy and keep it going. And so I knew that making a living on a farm would be a tough thing, and so I was looking for a profession, and I decided if I became a country lawyer that I could make a living out in rural DeKalb and Smith County, and so that's what took me to law school.
A country lawyer.
Yes, sir.
That would that would have been great for the farmers with the tough times that they have farming and everything. But so you want to be a country farmer. What changed then? A lot of people probably don't know, but you were very successful in business before that you decided to get into public service. How did that all work?
Very blessed. So while I was actually in my second year of law school, a fellow law school student and I had a business idea that really had nothing to do with the law. It was about information technology training, and at that time Microsoft was of course already very successful, but they were starting a professional certification program, and we saw that program and thought it was kind of ripe for taking an idea that had long been used in the legal arena, which was to create practice exams to help people pass the certification exams that Microsoft was creating, and we were the first company to do that, and that turned out to be a good idea, and we had it at the right time, as they say. In the right place at the right time.
Right place and right time. Well, that's great. Did that was you and your friend, and I guess later sold that business?
We did. So that was 1992. From between 92 and 2000, we trained about 3.5 million people around the world.
Wow.
And we're very blessed in that business. And in late 2000, we sold that business. Ultimately, the Kaplan Company, which at that time was part of the Washington Post Company, bought the business, and they still own it today.
That's an amazing success story, to local Putnam County boy, goes to school here, graduate tech, goes on to Vanderbilt, raised up on a farm, and then to start your own business and to be that successful. That's a great success story.
Well, again, we were very blessed, and I would say to everyone listening, you hear sometimes all the good ideas have already been thought of, and that's absolutely not true. The best ideas haven't yet come to anyone's mind. So.
And having faith in yourself to think that you can do those things and never giving up, as I've always said, is part of it. So your dad, hard worker, owned a farm here locally. Part of your life was growing up on the farm, right?
That's right. I was speaking recently at the Farm City Day breakfast in Cookeville, and I shared this story. I grew up in the city, just off 6th Street here in Cookeville, but I spent the vast majority of my afternoons and weekends and summer vacations on the farm with my dad, and it had a real impact on me and was an experience and exposed me to things that have really served me well in life.
Most people that may have not been raised on a farm or had the opportunity to have that experience don't understand what a great life growing up on a farm is. A lot of hard work, but a great life in teaching you all the many things in life that you're going to need to know. Your dad must have been a great teacher that got you to the.
He was, and a very patient man. I never saw him angry in my entire life, and anyone out there who knew him will know what I'm talking about. He was a great mentor and role model, and the great thing about growing up on the farm is that and my dad was good at this. We didn't know we were working probably until we got to be 12 or 13, 14 years old. That's about the time I figured out, hey, this is actually work that he has me doing.
You thought it was fun.
It was fun. And we were
a great
spending time
life.
with my dad and with our siblings, with my grandmother, and so it was just a great family experience.
Well, that's great. You've got a great story, and we're going to continue with that. We're talking to our newly elected Congressman John Rose this morning, and you're listening to Today in Putnam County on News Talk 107.7 and 1400 The Hub. I'm Randy Porter, your host. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Executive Randy Porter, the show that's talking about all the great things happening in Putnam County. Hope you're having a great Saturday morning. Our special guest this morning is Congressman Elect John Rose, and we're glad to have John with us this morning. He's been telling us about his childhood and growing up, which is a great story, John. But we're going to move now into your future. And there's one question I think probably everyone wants to know. At what point did you decide that you wanted to be a public servant and run for Congress? Was there a moment that you can go back to that you say, oh, yes, it was this?
I don't know if I can take you back to the exact moment, but it was 2016 during the presidential election that was unfolding that year, and I know everyone remembers, can think back on
yes.
that. But my wife and I, we have a young son, and we were talking about starting a family at that time, and we, in our discussions about the state of affairs in the country, we concluded that our generation is at risk of being the first in the history of the country to leave the country worse off to the next generation, and
right.
We didn't think that was acceptable, and we were fearful about that for our son child we hope to have, and so I guess I complained about that one too many times to my wife during that time period, and this was in the early fall of that year, and she said to me kind of haughtily one day, well, if you're going to keep talking about it, you got to do something about it. And,
wow.
And I thought, well, I thought I had been doing something about it in the way of supporting other candidates and being active and being informed and always voting. But I said, well, what would you have me do? And she said, you should run for office. And so we had a little discussion about that. And it was about that time that I began to pay attention, I guess, really, and took stock of the fact that Congressman Black, the current congressman, was thinking about running for governor. And so I had gotten to know her. And so one day I thought, just prior to the 2016 election day, I thought, well, I should call her and find out, because she might make that decision fairly. So then that started a process for me of thinking about running in a serious way.
And today, here we are.
Yes.
Elected. You're excited, I'm sure?
Oh, yes. It's exciting. It can be a little overwhelming. What I have learned is that the varied experiences that I've had in life and the things I've done and the pressure that I've put myself under in business and in other activities, it now serves me well, because there are moments when if you hadn't been through some of those things, maybe you wouldn't be ready for what comes at you in this role.
You've been to Washington already, went through some orientation. They always told me it was drinking from a fire hose.
Absolutely, it really is. And you know, wouldn't ask anybody to feel sorry for me, because I know this is a great honor and a privilege, and I asked for it. But it is really sort of overwhelming what is expected of a new congressman, the things you need to know, and it really underscores to me how important it is that the people we send have had varied experiences and background. And I know it's sometimes exciting to think about sending a really young person to Congress, and perhaps that is a perspective that needs to be there. But I know, even with the great training I had in Putnam County schools and at Tennessee Tech, I would not have been well equipped to do this when I was 28 years old. And so the life experiences I have, I think, will come in handy.
They mean a lot, all the experiences you've got. We're talking to our newly elected Congressman John Rose this morning. John, we do a little segment just to kind of break it up called I'd Like to Know, and we're going to ask you a few questions and get some personal information about John.
Now we get the tough questions.
Now we get the tough questions. What's your favorite song?
I would say, and I've got a funny story if we have time, I'll tell you about that, but probably Lean on Me.
That's a great one.
It's a song that really speaks to me.
Is there a story behind that?
Well, there is a story behind that, and it's from the recent Nashville mayor's race, and they asked the mayoral candidates this question while they were in a debate, and the candidates were clearly not prepared. They had not thought about this, and so the funny incident is one of the former mayors, I won't say the name, the only song she could think of was the jingle for her opponent, and it was kind of a humorous moment. And then one of the other candidates said "Friends in Low Places," which maybe wasn't the best answer to give that.
So your Lean on Me's pretty good answer this morning. Yeah, that's
so I started thinking about it then and said, what would I say if I got asked that? And you want to be you want to really kind of reveal something about what you're thinking about. So.
Yeah. Favorite movie of all time?
You'll all laugh when you hear this, and my wife will shake her head. Groundhog Day.
Oh, I love that movie. Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I wish we had time to hear that story too. Favorite food?
Hamburger.
Hamburgers, that's a good one. if you couldn't live in Cookeville, where would you live?
Well, that's really easy for me, and in fact, I've lived most of the last 25 years on our family farm, which is in a little community. Well, it's actually between the communities of Temperance Hall and Lancaster on the DeKalb County, Smith County line.
Yeah, that's a great place down there. Very rural.
It is,
but very peaceful and quiet community down there.
It is. There are more cars past my house here in Cookeville, probably in 10 minutes, that pass that house on the farm all day.
All day. That's great. That's great. So there's a little personal information for you from John Rose, our newly elected congressman that we're talking with this morning. John, things are tension, I guess, would be the best way to put it in Washington right now. It seems like there's a lot of fighting and between the parties and things going on in Washington. Going into Congress and having to be there on a day-to-day basis, have you got kind of a top 3 list of things that you think are going to be the most important issues facing you when you have to go into Congress?
I do. I will say that with the recent elections and the change of majority status in the House, that may alter the degree to which I and the others in the Congress are able to address the ones that I would identify, and I understand that. But I think the biggest issue facing the country is, and I talked about this on the campaign trail, is the national debt and the annual deficits that we're running with our federal government. And I think we have to, well, I don't think there's any question, we have to get that under control. And ultimately that's going to mean some hard choices, both for the leaders of the country, but for the people of the country. They've got to come to reconcile that we can't continue to live beyond our means. And that really translates into sacrifices that we're all going to have to make. I don't think there's a person in this country that in some way is not depending on or has become dependent upon a government program, and some of that's going to have to be cut back and in many cases eliminated.
Do you think with the House being split, House and Senate being split between parties, is that going to cause gridlock? In the olden days, people reached across the aisle and tried to work out things that would help the country and what was best for the country. Last couple of years, hadn't really seen that happening. How do you foresee it going into Congress?
Well, the first thing I would say is that, and this is probably a surprise, is that remarkably that is still happening. So the vast majority of bills that get introduced in the Congress pass on a bipartisan basis, and most people are not aware of that.
So what we see as the general public looking at those things is not really the way that it's going on.
You know, what we see is that the news media, controversy sells, and so they pick out the most controversial issues, and we have, of course, 24/7 news cycles, and it's not really newsworthy if today 435 congressmen voted for X, Y, or Z bill. Right. And so that doesn't get a lot of coverage. They cover the flashpoints, and then I think we should keep in mind that although we always look back on history fondly, we should remember that there have been times, in fact, it's been the norm, that there's been contention in the Congress. Fortunately today we don't have duels, or no one gets caned on the House floor, and those things have happened in the past. And so, and even the harsh rhetoric that we see today, the harsh comments that congressmen make about one another and about the president, those things are kind of old hat. And even the harshness in the media, I dare say, if you look back at particularly some of the political cartoons from earlier eras, you see that they were pretty caustic back then.
We have short memories sometimes, don't we, about the things that have gone in the past. I know you're running crazy right now. One of the things you're doing is looking for office space for your offices to be set up. Looking of having an office here in Cookeville?
Absolutely. In fact, our plan is to have our main office for the district here in Cookeville.
That is great. And I'm not sure that's ever happened before either.
I don't believe so. Obviously, years ago, when Congressman Gore represented the district, he had an office in Carthage, I think, and one here in Cookeville. And so that may be the closest in recent years.
Well, that's great. We're excited, John. We have full faith in you that you're going to do a great job. We think you're going to make a great congressman. Thank you for coming and being on the show this morning.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And John has a great wife too, Chelsea. If you've never met her, she's your backbone, kind of like mine is, and I know she's very supportive of you. And we wish you the best, and thank you for being here this morning. You've been listening to Today in Putnam County on News Talk 107 and 1400 The Hub. Our special guest this morning has been Congressman Elect John Rose. Stay with us. We'll be right back.